Hello and welcome to the Build 803 feature tour. It's a big one, so I'm going to jump right into it, though just real quickly. If you've never seen one of these videos before, what they're essentially made to do is give users who are upgrading to this version of RackForms the best and quickest way to see what's new and how they can take advantage of some of these new features. So again, lots to get through, so let's jump right in. The first is we've added some functionality and features to our invoicing system. Invoices are those things which are automatically created by RackForms when we use Stripe or PayPal Express Checkout as our payment type. The two new features that we have essentially are the ability to set our invoice title. This makes creating multilingual forms much easier. And we can now select the invoice page style. Now these are broken into two main categories. The default is full page. This is what the legacy behavior is, but we've now added these inline modes as well. Inline, of course, are what we'd use if we had an embedded form in something like a WordPress page. So very, very flexible there. Allows us to make sure our invoice works perfectly no matter where it's being put. We've had some big advancements to the raw code block element. So without going too deep into this, the raw code block element used to inject its contents, that is what's put right here, directly into our page's source code. It didn't have any positioning information. Now the benefit of not having positioning information is I could do things like this. I could open a div right here. Notice it's not closed. I just open a div, have a couple form field elements, and then issue a clearing div and the close div for this guy. The end result is I get a nice background behind this guy. So essentially, we would use background elements for hacks, essentially, right? Like those times when I wanted to get direct code into my page. Well, the new feature here is we now have a new mode for our elements called inline. So essentially what inline allows us to do is write the same raw code that we did before, only now this guy has positioning code. So for example, if I had a page where I wanted to check the status of, let's say, a get or a post variable, I can now do so, and I could put that code exactly where I want it to show up. So maybe I want it just below the section header, for example. The way that we use this generally is to write custom PHP code. The reason why we use it is because even though we can add PHP code to standard text elements, you'll notice it doesn't show, which means that if I write custom code, when I go back to this form in a year or two, I'm not actually going to see that I have custom inline code in this form. Using blocks tells us as form developers that we have custom code on this page, and now that we can style it wherever we want, it allows us to put code where we need it as well. So if you're a type of developer that writes inline code, definitely check out blocks. They are very easily located under page, layout, and then block. Build 800 came in with a couple additions to the entry viewer. There's a lot more features. Again, we're just covering the highlights here. But basically, the entry viewer can now display PDFs. The hint here that I would give is to ensure that your entry viewer displays PDFs, to make sure that on your file upload item, you have its allowed file types set to PDF files only. So long as we do that, though, I can now go into the entry viewer, and as you'll see with an example here, if I have a PDF file upload, I will actually display it, and if I click on it, I will be able to view it directly inline in my browser, so long as it supports PDF viewing. You'll also notice, though, that the entry viewer itself has gotten a couple improvements. The look is cleaned up, icons are bigger, should be a little bit easier to use the entry viewer moving forward. Build 801 came in with one major new feature. It's called the API Manager. It's a quick demonstration of why you care about the API Manager. Let's assume just for a moment here that I have a page and I want to apply some Google Analytics tracking code to it. Now, it used to be in RackForms that in order to do that, I'd have to type in my account ID and my domain, and then Google would use that information in the way that RackForms built this into the page. Well, the problem is I would have to do this for every job, every single page of that job. Well, no longer. As we can see with this little message right here, we say if no API credentials are provided, RackForms will attempt to use the values defined in the API Manager. And of course, here's where the magic comes in. If I click on API Manager, sure enough, I have a section for Google Analytics where I can put in my account ID, my account domain, and now when I save this, anytime I build a form and I don't have credentials blocked in right here, RackForms will automatically use those API credentials. Now, even better, these are based on a per user basis, which means that every member of your team can have their own credentials so you can track each individual user's credentials. Now, of course, I should also point out that this, as a feature, is going to grow as we move forward. Right now, we've included Google Analytics and the PayPal Express checkout and Stripe settings, though we're going to integrate more of these features as time goes on. So the amount of times that you have to type information into RackForms is going to get significantly smaller. It's something that we're really excited about. Finally, the last two big features in 801, we now have, 802, we now have an align feature. So if I go into, let's see, this alignment demo job right here, I can select a couple items, and I can then either select from right here or right here an alignment option to apply to them. As you can see here, it's very, very simple to do so. What's nice about this, though, is in addition to that type of functionality where we kind of grab a bunch of elements and perform an action at once, it also comes a lot of responsibility. So for example, let's say I'm building my form and I've got these two items positioned just perfectly, and when I grab these two guys and align them, oops, I accidentally grabbed the freeform header right there. Previously on RackForms, we didn't have a way to undo that. Well, I'm proud to announce, really proud in fact, that our big flagship feature in Build 803 is our form history system. So basically, it's enabled by default. I can access it anytime using this menu right here, though I should point out you can actually toggle it on and off under form options right here, so I can enable or disable history if I want. But basically, I can now go through and I can simply click through all the items that I performed on this form. It is a lovely, lovely thing to see, especially after all these years of not actually having it. What's nice about this is I think you're going to find a lot of other really good goodies here as well. They're really nice goodies. So for example, if I select my text element right here and I scroll down and maybe let's say add a new tooltip right here, not only do I save that history state, I also save my position in the editor. So if I go back to alignment update right here, yes, I've undid that state, but if I go back to my place where I typed in my tooltip, I automatically scroll down to where that tooltip was entered, and that makes it much, much easier to go through and rebuild the history of what you've done as you've worked on your form. So again, it's something I'm really, really excited about, and it's going to make working with RackForms, I think, much, much easier. Finally, I should note that this is just the feature highlights. There's a bunch of stuff that we didn't cover. Buckets have gotten a lot more powerful. There's been small UI tweaks. We now allow things like pointers and default values. Lots and lots of stuff in here. It's part of our overall strategy in 2014 of making the editor itself much more pleasurable to work with. We keep adding features to make RackForms powerful, but we want to make sure the editor itself is an unbelievably enjoyable experience, if that's at all possible. So thanks for your time. Any questions? Of course, info@rackforms.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, happy form building.